This photograph shouldn't exist. The woman in it is my mother. She looks happy, but a little anxious. The problem is, this picture was taken in 1978, and my mother? She passed away in 1975. My name is Alex. My story didn't begin in an abandoned castle or at the site of an ancient curse. It began at a dusty flea market on a Sunday afternoon. I was wandering between rows of old things when I saw it. An Argus C3 film camera, a model from the 70s. Heavy, boxy, like a brick. It cost only $5. I bought it simply as a piece of decor, a souvenir from the past. I couldn't have imagined that inside this metal body lay a secret that would shatter my understanding of time, memory, and the person closest to me. This story is real, and it might change how you see the world. Before we look through the lens of this cursed camera together, do one thing that will help us in this investigation. Subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications. We will walk step by step down this dark corridor of the past, and believe me, you won't want to be alone when we get to the end. For a few days, the camera just sat on my shelf collecting dust. But then, curiosity got the better of me. What if there was still film inside? What if it held some moments from strangers' lives, frozen for 40 years? I carefully opened the back in a dark room and felt for a canister. It was there, an old roll of Kodak film. I took it to a photo lab, not expecting anything special. It was probably overexposed or ruined by time. The guy at the lab told me to come back in a couple of days. When I returned, he handed me an envelope with the photos and gave me a very strange look. "You've got some interesting family archives," he said. I didn't understand what he meant until I opened the envelope. In the first photograph, there was a woman. She was sitting on a park bench, smiling. She wore a light summer dress in the style of the 70s. Behind her, a Ferris wheel was visible. The moment I saw her face, it took my breath away. It was my mom. But that was impossible. My mom died of an illness when I was just 5 years old in 1975. And the entire aesthetic of the photo, the clothes, the hairstyles of passers-by in the background, the model of a car in the frame, screamed of the late 70s, around 78 or 79. My first thought was that it had to be a mistake. This was just an incredibly similar-looking woman, a doppelganger. With trembling hands, I pulled out the next photograph. It was her again. Now she was standing in front of a toy store window. The smile was gone from her face. She looked worried, as if she were looking for someone in the crowd. The third picture, she's on an embankment, looking at the water. The fourth, in a cafe, drinking coffee, but staring directly at the lens with an expression of fear. It was the same for all 12 frames. My mother, alive and well, 3 or 4 years after her official death. In the last picture, she was in a dark alley, pressed against a wall. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at something behind the photographer, and on her face was genuine terror. I locked myself in my house for several days, studying these pictures under a magnifying glass. I had to find a rational explanation. I started analyzing the details. In one of the photos, a poster for the movie Halloween was behind my mom. It premiered in late 1978. This was an irrefutable proof that the picture was taken at least 3 years after her funeral. In another photo, where she was in the cafe, I noticed a reflection in the window, blurry, distorted, but I could make out the figure of the photographer. A person in a trench coat and a hat. No face was visible, but it was at this person she was staring at in fear. Who was he? Who was stalking my mother, or her double, and taking pictures of her? My first logical guess is that my mother had a twin sister that no one in the family knew about. Secrets of the past, skeletons in the family closet, it happens. I started calling all my distant relatives, digging up old archives, birth certificates. I spent weeks. The result was nothing. My mother had no sisters or brothers. She was an only child. That theory was out, leaving even more questions behind. I've always been a skeptic, but when logic fails, the mind starts looking for answers beyond the veil. Could the camera have been a channel? A device capable of capturing what is invisible to the eye? An echo of the past? A ghost trapped in time? This theory explained why it was her in the photos, but it didn't explain why she was in the future relative to her own death. And who was the person pressing the shutter button? Another ghost? It sounded insane. But with each passing day, this insane idea seemed more and more plausible. The woman in the photos looked alive, but terrified. Maybe she didn't understand what was happening herself. This is the wildest theory, but let's consider it. What if my mother didn't die in 1975? What if she somehow traveled to the future, lived there for a few more years, and then returned to her own year to die? Or maybe she was from a parallel universe, accidentally slipping into our reality, and the camera captured these glitches in the fabric of time. This version would explain the date discrepancy, and the mysterious photographer could have been some kind of observer or a traveler just like her. I knew I was delving into science fiction, but the facts in the photographs were stubborn.
I was in despair. I looked at the last, most terrifying picture over and over again, the one where my mom is standing in the alley. I zoomed in as much as I could, and I noticed something I hadn't seen before. On the wall behind her, there was graffiti. Half faded, but one word was clearly legible: sycamore. The word seemed vaguely familiar. I started searching online. Sycamore Street, Sycamore Park. There were none in my city. I broadened my search to the entire country, and I found it. A small, nearly abandoned town in the next state, which in the 70s was a thriving industrial center, and its main street was Sycamore Street. I had my first real lead. I got in my car and drove. The town was exactly as I had imagined, half forgotten, with boarded-up shop windows. I found the street, I walked along it, checking against the photographs. There was the toy store window, now shattered. There was the cafe, now in ruins. It all matched. My mom, or her double, had really been here. But why? I went to the local library, to the archive of old newspapers, and what I found there made my blood run cold. In a collection of newspapers from 1979, I found an article. Unidentified woman found dead. An accompanying photo from the morgue was attached. It was her, my mother. According to the report, she had died of a heart attack brought on by extreme fright. She had no identification on her. She was never identified and was buried in an unmarked grave. But that wasn't the worst part. The article mentioned a witness, an elderly man who saw her running down an alley, chased by a person in a hat and a trench coat, and that person was holding an old camera. So what happened? I don't have all the answers. But here's my version, pieced together from fragments of facts and speculation. My mother didn't die in 1975. Perhaps it was staged. She ran away. She ran away from something or someone to this remote town to start a new life under a different name. But the past found her. The person with the camera, the photographer, tracked her down. He didn't want to kill her. He wanted to torture her. He stalked her, photographing her fear, her despair. And in the end, her heart couldn't take it. Who was this photographer? I don't know. Maybe it was someone from her past life, someone she had wronged. And the camera? It was just a tool, an instrument of torture. It wasn't magical or cursed. All the magic and all the horror were not in the camera, but in the people, I found her unmarked grave in the old cemetery. I put a stone on it with her real name. The story of the old film was over. I got answers, but they brought me no peace. They only opened a new, even deeper wound. The mystery of what my mother was really running from her whole life. And that secret, unlike the photographs, remains undeveloped. So that's the story. Do you believe it really happened? That an old camera could capture something like this? As for me, I'll be honest, I believe it. After holding those pictures in my hands, walking those same streets, and finding that unmarked grave, I have no doubts left. This story, as insane as it may seem, was real. Write in the comments what you think about it. Was it a tragic coincidence, a paranormal event, or someone's evil intent? I really want to know your opinion.